before you assume happening instead of what their fear is telling them. When emotions run high, your thoughts become distorted. You think she's gone forever, you think she stopped caring overnight, and you assume there's no hope. But most of the time, she's simply overwhelmed, confused, emotionally flooded, or pulling back because she doesn't know what she wants. That is not the same as being gone permanently. When a woman pulls away, she's usually not making a final decision about the relationship. She's creating space to evaluate her feelings. Women do this instinctively. They step back when they feel pressure, uncertainty, or emotional noise. They're trying to understand what they feel, what they need, and whether the relationship still aligns with who they're becoming. But when men panic, they misinterpret her silence as a final rejection. They chase harder, text more, over-explain, apologize excessively, or attempt to force clarity before she's ready. That push only drives her further away, making the situation feel more final than it actually is. The truth is, the emotional intensity of a breakup, emotional fog clear, and refusing to act out of desperation. Instead of trying to fix, force, or chase, you pause, you breathe, you distance yourself from your anxious thoughts. You remind yourself that fear is temporary and clarity always follows. When you stop reacting emotionally, you start seeing the breakup or distance for what it truly is, a moment of emotional imbalance, not a life sentence. Women don't lose feelings instantly. Emotional bonds don't break overnight. The fear inside you is louder than reality, and your mind is convincing you of an ending that hasn't actually happened. When you slow down, you begin to see the subtle truths that fear blinds you from. The history you share with her doesn't disappear. The connection you had still exists, and people rarely walk away permanently when genuine emotions were involved. Instead of collapsing under fear, you must tap into emotional strength. Emotional control is what creates attraction, stability, and respect. She may be taking space, but that space is not the enemy, your reaction to it is. If you let anxiety take over, you'll push her further. If you stay grounded, she will put pressure on her and not trying to chase her into loving you, she naturally begins to relax. This is the moment when clarity returns, both for you and for her. Women often come back not because you chased them, but because you didn't. You handled the emotional separation with maturity, and that maturity creates gravity. Fear pushes her away. Calmness draws her back. So the truth is simple. Before you think she's never coming back, understand that what you feel now is not the full picture. Emotions distort perception. Panic distorts judgment. But stability restores both. When you stop acting from fear, you gain the clarity to see what's really happening. And that clarity often reveals that she isn't gone. She's simply giving the relationship room to breathe. And your job is to stay grounded enough to let that space work in your favor. Becoming the man she thought she lost isn't about pretending, performing, or trying to impress her. It's about genuinely stepping back into your masculine center, the place where confidence, purpose, direction, attraction, or even basic emotional safety, you must rise, not because you want her back, but because you're a man with a mission. Before the breakup, maybe you got lazy. Maybe you became too available, too predictable, too reactive. Maybe you stopped being the man she admired and became the man who made her feel responsible for your happiness. Women instinctively pull back from men who place emotional weight on their shoulders. They want a partner who can stand upright on his own, not someone they have to hold up. That's why becoming a stronger version of yourself is essential. It's how you rebuild the foundation of attraction. This journey starts with your mindset. You need to reconnect with who you were before fear, insecurity, or emotional dependence took over. That means getting back to living with purpose. A man who is fully invested in his mission is magnetic. Not because he's trying to impress anyone, but because purpose gives direction, direction builds confidence, and confidence creates stability. When you're rooted in your mission, whether that's your career, craft, fitness, goals, or personal different, you don't need to tell her you've changed, she will feel it. Women are incredibly attuned to emotional energy. They notice growth without you saying a word. When she sees you glowing differently, carrying yourself with confidence, living with purpose, enjoying your life, building momentum, and not chasing, that's when she starts thinking about the version of you she once fell for. She starts wondering if she walked away from something real. She remembers the connection, the memories, the emotional highs. And because you're no longer acting out of fear, you create space for attraction to re-emerge naturally. Becoming the man she thought she lost isn't about winning her back. It's about winning yourself back. When you transform into a stronger, wiser, more grounded version of yourself, two things happen. Either she comes back and finds a man she can trust again, or you become so empowered that you no longer feel dependent on whether she returns. Either way, you win, and that's the exact mindset that makes you unstoppable in love, in life, and in your own evolution as a man. When a woman pulls away, the most natural instinct for a man is to chase. Men sabotage themselves because they don't understand this simple truth. When she pulls back, it's not an invitation to chase, it's a signal that she needs emotional room. Most of the time, she isn't even sure what she feels. She needs space to process her doubts, her frustrations, her confusion, or her changing emotional rhythm. Women don't fall out of love instantly, and they don't withdraw because they want you to fight harder. They withdraw because they need to feel the contrast between having you and not having you. That emotional contrast is what creates clarity for her. If you fill that space with messages, calls, explanations, apologies, or emotional pressure, you take away the clarity she's trying to find. She doesn't get the chance to miss you. She instead feels overwhelmed, suffocated, and pushed farther away. Men often misunderstand this distance as rejection. They think if I don't act now, she'll forget me, or if I don't say something, she'll move on. But the truth is, your silence and emotional stability make her feel safer than your panic. She needs distance, individuality, and emotional breathing room. A mature man learns not to take that personally. Corey Wayne teaches that giving her space is actually a display of strength. It shows that you trust the connection, trust yourself, and trust the natural flow of the relationship. It shows that you aren't insecure, needy, or dependent on her constant affection. When you pull back with calm confidence instead of panic, she notices. She respects it. She starts to feel safe again, and this safety is what creates emotional gravity. Women miss men who remain centered while they fluctuate. They miss men who don't demand emotional labor from them. When she feels your absence, not because you're punishing her, but because you're focused on your life, your purpose, your self-improvement, she begins to remember your value. The mind idealizes what it cannot immediately access. She starts thinking about your presence, your energy, your jokes, your support, your intimacy. She begins to feel a subtle pull back toward you. That pull only exists if she has room to feel it. Giving space also allows you to regain your own emotional balance. Allow the dynamic to reset. You stay open, available, and receptive, but not pushy. You respond, but don't initiate. You remain warm, but not needy. You continue living your life, improving your mindset, elevating your lifestyle, and strengthening your emotional discipline. This signals to her, without words, that you're a man she can come back to when her emotions settle. A man who respects her boundaries, a man who respects himself. Eventually, she begins to test the waters, a message, a like, a small gesture, or a random check-in. And because you didn't overwhelm her earlier, she feels safe reconnecting. That moment never comes if you chased her down. But it always comes when she has time to feel the void of your absence. Preparing yourself for her return begins long before she ever sends that first message, likes your post, or hints that she's thinking about you again. Corey Wayne teaches that a breakup or emotional distance isn't the end of a story, it's the beginning of a transformation. But the transformation isn't about changing for her. It's about becoming the kind of separation many men lose themselves. They put everything into the relationship and neglect their passions, their routines, their social life, their confidence, and their sense of direction. When she steps away, they suddenly realize how empty or unbalanced their world has become. But instead of treating that emptiness as a tragedy, Corey Wayne sees it as an opportunity, the perfect moment to rebuild a life that inspires pride rather than fear. Because when you start focusing on yourself again, you stop treating her as the center of your identity. You become whole on your own, and that wholeness is what makes you magnetic. Your mission, the work that gives your life meaning, becomes your anchor. The stronger your mission, the stronger your emotional stability. Men without purpose cling to relationships because they don't know who they are without them. Men with purpose move with confidence because they know their life has direction regardless of who stays or leaves. When you reattach to your mission, you naturally carry yourself differently. You walk with intention, speak. If not, my life is still moving forward. When you reach this level of emotional freedom, you stop carrying fear. And when fear leaves, confidence grows. Ironically, it's usually at this exact moment, when you are no longer defined by her, that she feels drawn back toward you. Women gravitate toward men who don't need them but choose them. So when she eventually reaches out, you won't be scrambling for validation or clinging to the past. You will meet her with calmness, strength, and presence, not from desperation, but from a place of abundance and self-respect. She will see the difference immediately. She'll feel the shift. She'll realize she's not returning to the same man she walked away from. She's returning to a man who grew through pain, who elevated his life, who rebuilt his identity, and who now stands stronger than ever. And that is the kind of man a woman feels safe loving again.